So I have a really important question to ask you today, and I'm going to ask Becky, because she's, the authority on this maybe.
I don't think so.
We're going to work this out. And that is that there is a component to team ministry. Now, the last couple videos that we put out, I talked about the communication and the negotiation equals agreement, so that the communication has to go both ways between the leaders and the team members. And then the next video I put out called Journey, and it's talking about how we need to pay attention to the personal vision and plans and desires and dreams and destiny of the people on our team, because we want to keep people engaged for the long term. We've got a big job to do. So this next component, I have noticed that people that are really successful in serving God have succeeded in this one component, and that is the willingness and the ability to adjust and to change when you are looking at your future. And so, as opposed to somebody who's like really rigid in their plan and their purpose and they can't change off it, and sometimes they'll say, well, God told me this, whatever, right? So that's what I want to talk about today, Vic, because honestly, I see much more success in people that are willing to change.
Right.
And, we say that old guys have a tough time changing, but really young people have just as much or maybe more. I don't know, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, my experience, I don't have a lot of experience with old guys because I know very few old guys. But with, some of the young people is they're so confident in what they feel like they know, because they haven't had enough life experience yet to bring in a little bit of humility, because you think that you assume that if you do everything right, it's all going to go according to plan. But there are things that are outside of our control, right? And life kind of teaches that, and then you learn that what you do know can change at any moment's notice.
Yeah. I mean, we have to decide as a team member what we're willing to change. And honestly, the more we're willing to change, because what happens is if we're not willing to change, then we've closed off a certain number of opportunities and possibilities. And then again, I say that you see a greater level of success in people that are willing to change. So when you're looking as, let's say I'm a team member, right? Say you're my boss, and I'm looking at, I've got a vision to do this, such and such, but you need something different. How should we manage that?
Well, I think the first question that you have to ask yourself is, what team has God placed me in, right? Because God will put us in a family, in a tribe. And then the second question is, what is the vision of that tribe? Where are we heading towards? Because there are things that every one of us are going to have to adjust to in order to make that vision come to pass, because the vision isn't successful just because we have a plan and everybody's working in their part. The vision is successful because we're working together in community, we're working together in obedience to the voice of God, and every one of us is, I think the word is flexible, right? To adjust what we need to do in order to be obedient to the voice of God, I think you look in the stories in the Old Testament, there were specific things that God sometimes told the Israelites to do, when they're going to go in and conquer Jericho. That was very specific. And then there were other times when God's like, just conquer the land. Well, what does that look like? Well, just go conquer the land, So for every one of us, we can't put everything into a box, a category, a specific 5-year plan and say, this for sure is the voice of God. All we can do is day by day, am I walking in obedience? Is my obedience fulfilling the vision God's put on my life? Is it keeping me in relationship with the team that's around me? Or is it pulling me apart? And I think anything that pulls us apart from those relationships God's given us, and anything that pulls us apart from the vision that God's given us, that's a danger. That's where you need to be like, okay, I need to adjust. Something needs to change here.
And I think, too, that we can measure those things by really considering not the written in stone stuff, right? But looking at what God has given us in the team. And from both sides, right? So let's say as a leader, I'm going to look at the gifts and the talents and, the anointings and the dreams and the visions that God has brought into this team. And I'm going to be willing to flow with that and not be so rigid in what I want to see happen. And then the same thing as a team member, I am going to look at what the team is doing, what the vision of the house is, and I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to flow with that, because this really is going to be a much bigger, well, even opportunity for me, if I am willing to be flexible to get into something that is bigger than what I could get into on my own,
Yeah.
right?
And the truth is, we all of us have to trust God with that plan and the
Right.
purpose for our lives. Either God is big enough to, I mean, even if our leader doesn't see our potential, he's either big enough to circumvent and change something in
Right.
that leader's, heart or whatever, or he's not. So,
Right.
like either it's a God thing that's going to happen in our lives or it's an us thing. And if there's ever any doubt, I would rather just surrender it to God and just say,
Yes.
okay, Lord, I'll let you handle this. And I'm going to trust you with this, because what I don't want to do is have an agenda. I think as team leaders, it's very easy for us to accidentally, because we have the right motives, we have the right everything, but to accidentally move into control.
Right.
Where because we want to see the vision move ahead in a certain way, and the plan is so clear on our own minds,
Right.
that we think that it can only happen if A, B, C, D, and E happen
Right.
exactly in this order,
Yeah.
But as a team member, it's so easy for me to accidentally fall into having an agenda where I'm not going to do this thing unless it goes the way that I need it to go, or unless my
Right.
ideas are accepted,
Right.
unless, my gifts and my talents and my abilities are used. And when we're coming together to work in a team, it's kind of like any covenant that you make, like if you're a husband and wife and you're getting married or whatever, both sides have to come into agreement, and both sides have to adjust for the sake of the covenant, right? So as leaders, as team members, we both have to adjust for the sake of covenant, and whatever it is that God's called us to do, he's big enough to make that happen. He put that dream, he put that destiny in our hearts, and it's his job and his responsibility to give us the opportunity to fulfill that.
Right.
But when we feel like we have to make something happen, it just shows me that our identity is wrapped up in what we do, as
Right.
opposed to who
Yeah.
God is and what he's speaking in my life. And I don't ever want that to be the case. It's
Right,
dangerous.
yeah. And I see too that one of the things that has been an interesting kind of manifest in people's lives is when they say, well, this isn't what I expected. Right? And I'm kind of like, well, what did you expect? You expected a team, a ministry that's going to bend over backwards to fulfill your every little part of your vision. That's not going to happen anywhere. And so that shows a real lack of willing to be flexible, right? Willing to change. But more than that, it shows a lack of believing God, like you say, like, is God put this thing together or not? And then on top of that, it ends up being a lack of potential success that we could have had if we'd have just embraced something bigger. So I think that's really, we've got to really be careful about what we expected and, and what we're really, the reality of where we're at.
Yeah, we're called to serve Jesus. We're not called to have a ministry, right? I'm not called
Right.
to be a whatever.
Good
I'm
point.
called to serve Jesus. And if we keep that our focus, we're willing to actually lay anything down, There were things that even Jesus had to do that he didn't want to do, right? Garden of Gethsemane, God, like, if
Right.
there's any other way, please. But yet at the end of the day, he still had to surrender his own
Right.
will, And I think about when Matthew and I first came to Thailand, we had a very specific dream in our heart. We wanted to work with young adults and plant a church, or like something that it would end up being a church. We wanted to work in worship. But when we landed here, even though you guys gave us permission to do whatever we could set our hearts to, what I saw overwhelmingly was the need that we had for administration. We were in the middle of a building project. There was some issues going on with that. And so I kind of had to step in because I could see the need. And I could see that, okay, well, I could start something new or fill a gap that was, And it was tough because it was a little bit confusing. I felt like, God, like I had no dreams of sitting in an office punching numbers on a calculator.
Yeah.
But yet this is what you're telling me to do right now. And also, I was not equipped for it.
Right.
And sometimes that's what makes us feel like I'm not the one for this job. When a leader says, can you take this on or whatever, sometimes we feel like I'm not ready for it. But the issue isn't, are you ready with your skills and physically? It's, are you ready to just surrender and say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you in this process. And if I'm the wrong person, it'll come out very clearly
Right, yeah.
how this doesn't function. But
Yeah.
the whole point is we can have a clear idea. But part of the process that God walks us through to getting to that destination is the process of being flexible, of
Right.
surrendering, of not getting bent out of shape when it's not going our way, of not stressing out when it seems like we have issues and there's contentions and whatever,
Right, right.
When you're in a team, it's not going to be perfect. And perfect is not what teaches us that everything is going good, you know.
Yeah.
It's, can you keep your peace? Can you still work in love? Can you listen? Can you give a little?
Right.
Can you, you know, all of those things.
And also, at the same time, when you guys showed up in Thailand at that point, I mean, you grew up here, but then we're back in Canada for a few years. You got married and came back and ready to hit the road running, right? I also watched you guys give up that dream and that plan to somebody else who had the same dream and that same plan. Like, okay, we're not the only ones that have this idea. And so you deferred it to them and let them run with it. So when you think about that, a lot of people would be like, no, this is mine, right? But it just brings contention. But what are the, on the other side of it, what are the possibilities? Like what have you and Matt benefited from by being not only flexible to do what you saw needed to be done, but also to give up that, in a sense, that dream and that plan to somebody else who had it as well? What would you say in the long run is the benefits?
Well, I think the number one benefit is the protection over my heart.
Right.
Because I could very clearly see where I was pushing an agenda and not willing to just, you know, God is big enough that if he needs there to be a young adults church and a rock and worship group in Thailand, he can make it happen with or without me, right? And so not putting myself in the center that I am the missing piece for God's plan, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing that God needs me to do is to be willing to submit, and just learning how to keep my heart right is the best thing, because you're going to have to learn to do that every day of your life forever, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they stumble, they don't go to the next level of growth or maturity because they keep falling against that thing where it's like my will, my way, my thingy, you know?
Right.
And I think the second thing that it's done for me is it's really taught me how to see the value in other people, because it's so easy for us to see what we bring to the table
Right.
and kind of ignore the gifts that God's actually put in other people, you know? If I can see the value that's in other people, then I'm released to, what's the word, not stress about how it's
Right.
going to happen, not
Right.
putting the pressure on myself that it's all on my shoulders, that if this thing falls apart, it's because I didn't do the right thing. Like, God's put people around me that can carry it. So I don't have to, like, spin my wheels or carry the pressure, or, you know, like, I can just relax in the fact that God knows, he's got people. If I'm the person, awesome. If I'm not the person, awesome. I need to walk in obedience to the voice of
Right.
God and be willing to just trust him with it all.
And there's a real tension, like in our hearts and in our lives, because as leaders, we do naturally feel it, and we are responsible to push things ahead. Like, we are the one that if something doesn't happen, right, it's my doing, right? And so we have to have that push as well. But for me, the discernment comes down to, am I at peace on the inside?
Yeah.
Do I know that I'm being, like, trusting God fully with this? Because I tell you what, some of the most maybe disappointing things is when there's somebody in the ministry, a young man, young woman, or whatever, especially if you've trained and invested in them over the years, and then suddenly they're gone off somewhere else, and you wish them well, and we release them. We don't have a problem with that. But also at the same time, you really needed that person, you know? And to believe God that he's going to replace them, right? And so then we believe that twice as many will come. Trusting God like that is absolutely amazing. And it's just another level of success, right? That's built on trusting God and letting God put it together the way he sees it, the way he wants it.
In the end, it's his deal. So, you know, like, if you're just walking in obedience, he's going to make sure it comes to pass.
Right.
It doesn't have to be on our shoulders, you know?
Yeah.
So it just brings a lot of freedom.
Right.
To perform and to take it personally when things fail, you know? It's
Right.
hard as a leader when you're like, we're going to do this, and then it doesn't work out, and you're like, oh, shame, walk of shame, you know? The truth is, it's not shame.
Right.
You don't have to be ashamed.
Yes.
You tried something,
Yeah.
it didn't work, let's keep moving.
Yeah,
you know?
that's right. Trusting God. And a lot of times, I guess, we kind of are in a position where if we took everything personally, it would be kind of shameful, you know, like we did fail or whatever, but God has that. He has our back. He really does. Right. I mean, you look at over 40 years or whatever, we've been doing this. I mean, I walk into this room, you know, during worship or whatever, and I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. You know, it's a dream come true in a much greater success than we ever thought or imagined, simply because we're willing to be flexible like that and let God do something bigger than what I can do myself.
Yeah.
And so as a team member, you know, particularly if you're a young man, young woman, even especially single ones, right? Be flexible. Don't set your plans in stone so that you would be embarrassed if you made
Yeah.
a choice to change something, right? And always be willing to recognize and trust God as what is the next step and what is He asking me to do. And it's not always the fun thing, but it's the best thing for you. You know, like you're sharing about Joseph, right? He's how he had to walk through all of those steps to get to the point where his brothers did actually bow down to him, and all of those are really important steps. So remember that you know you might go through prison on the way to get to where.
But you apparently needed it, so embrace it.
Right. And for leaders, the same thing holds true for us. You know, when we're looking at young people in our ministry, in our team, it's not our job to push them and force them into something that we think and we see. The truth is, as a leader, you do not see the whole picture.
No.
And I know that, and I'm just, thank God that for His grace that we're able to see that the picture of where we're going is actually found in the people that God has put around us.
Yeah,
right? So
amen.
when we look at the gifts and the callings that God has put around us, then we kind of know where we're going. And that's so much better and so much more relaxed and so much more successful than making a plan. This is what it's going to be and this is how everybody's going to fit in. So just relax a little and see what God has given us, the resources that He's given us, and make the most of it and allow Him to open up successes that we never even dreamed of before. The best, most amazing future for you is not the one that you can plan for yourself,
That's right, yeah.
but
That's
it's
good.
the one that God has in mind for you.
Amen.